The senator from New Jersey.
Mr. President, while we're getting set up here, I'd first ask unanimous consent to speak for 15 minutes.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. President. This week, we're laying out a blueprint for the part that Congress will play in America's economic recovery. Our budget just isn't a list of revenues and expenditures. It's a balance sheet of priorities and values. The lines of numbers come together to form a bigger picture, laying out a vision for where we plan to lead the nation. On a practical level, it gives us a chance to plan how we're going to create jobs, reform health care, make college more affordable, and end our dependence on foreign oil. This is President Obama's vision, and it is a mission that we share and seek to make a reality with this budget. Considering the current state of the economy, the times demand a bold strategy to give immediate help to those damaged by the crisis and create the conditions for recovery in the long term. But as we're moving forward with clarity and confidence, let's not forget, how we got to where we are today. We'd all prefer not to have a government run a deficit and a debt. There's no question about that. Unfortunately, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are a little late in coming to that conclusion. Republican policies were tried in the last presidency over the last 8 years and were tried in Congress for 10 years. They took a record surplus to a record deficit. They added trillions of dollars in debt, trading away our fiscal health in exchange for subsidies to big oil companies and tax breaks for the wealthy. They rubber-stamped a $1 trillion war in Iraq without even accounting for it in the budget. And so those who are proclaiming themselves guardians of fiscal responsibility, where were they when Dick Cheney declared that, quote, deficits don't matter? Deficits don't matter. So let's be very clear. It is a Republican deficit that we're inheriting, that the president inherited. Even if he did absolutely nothing, he'd have well over $1 trillion deficit. Republican policies got the government into the red. As President Obama has made it very clear, over the next few years, we're going to bring down that deficit he inherited because our long-term financial health depends on it. But right now, there's a bigger question. The question isn't just how do we cut the Republican deficit the nation inherited. The question is, what kind of country do we want our children to inherit? Do we want them to inherit a country where foreign workers are better trained and better prepared to compete in the global economy, or a country where Americans are, bar none, hands down, the best educated, best trained innovators in the world? Should the country they grow up in be one where they stay up at night worrying because one serious illness or injury can drive their family into bankruptcy, or one where everybody can sleep soundly, knowing their whole family's health has health coverage? Is this going to be a nation that's forced to send hundreds of billions of dollars a year to foreign governments to pay for oil, or a leader in the development of clean, cheap energy, creating jobs that can't be outsourced and exporting our technologies around the world? Those are the choices we face. And in this budget, we've chosen our path with confidence. We're making health care more affordable for the middle class, investing in clean energy to create jobs that can't be outsourced, helping more middle-class Americans get a college education, and cutting taxes for middle-class Americans. That's the kind of country President Obama has promised to help us build, and it's the kind of country we're choosing to build in this budget. In a sense, if we want to get our economy moving again, we don't really have a choice but to make these investments. Since this recession began, more than 4 million Americans have lost their jobs. 600,000 people are losing their job every month, and often their health insurance along with it. The housing market, the epicenter of this crisis, is still unstable. A tsunami of foreclosures is still devastating our neighborhoods and leaving families on the rocks, while homeowners have seen their homes lose a staggering collective $6.1 trillion in value since 2006. And while paychecks are shrinking, Americans continue to send hundreds of billions of dollars every year to foreign countries to pay for their oil. So I don't think there's any doubt that investing in a better future isn't a luxury, it is a necessity. It is time for the kind of reinvestment this country needs to recover our economic dynamism and strengthen the 21st century economy. And that's what this budget does. Let me talk about middle-class tax relief. First, this budget brings immediate tax relief to middle-class families. It brings tax relief to married couples, an expanded child tax credit, and a patch for the alternative minimum tax. Now, that tax, the alternative minimum tax, was originally designed to keep the wealthiest Americans from using creative accounting to avoid all taxes, but it was never intended to hit the middle class as hard as it is hitting them right now. Now, I'm proud to have introduced the amendment earlier this year in the stimulus package that passed that saves, for example, in my home state of New Jersey, over 1 million New Jersey families up to $5,600 a year. And this budget makes a commitment to those taxpayers that they will not be subjected to higher taxes under the alternative minimum tax for the next several years. And that's why collectively all of the tax cut benefits, the revenue changes in this budget is about $825 billion in tax cuts over the next 5 years. That's the kind of relief we need to put money back into people's pockets and give families that are being squeezed some financial breathing room. If you're a middle-class family, there's no doubt that this budget is good for your budget. Our budget also makes a strong investment in education. There are a few instruments and investments we can make that are as important, because it's no secret how closely tied our economic success is to success in the classroom. The country that outteaches us today outcompetes us tomorrow. So if we're going to stay at the apex of the curve of intellect and innovation, we need to invest in human capital and give our young people the skills to thrive in a 21st century economy. Now, I know what that means personally. I know what Pell Grants and other assistance for higher education means for students and their family. I was raised in a tenement, poor, the son of immigrants, the first in my family to go to college. I know I wouldn't be standing here today as one of 100 United States senators in a country of 300 million people if it weren't for the federal government's support for higher education. So I'm proud that this budget commits to making college more affordable. It boosts Pell Grants to $5,550, and it provides a $2,500 credit for higher education through the American Opportunity Tax Credit. That amounts to almost half of tuition at a state college or research university and full tuition at a community college. That's the kind of investment we need to help workers damaged by this crisis and also to prepare younger people for a brighter future. And our family budgets, our economic competitiveness, the stability of our climate, and our national security all depend on ending our dependence on foreign oil. The budget builds on the economic recovery package, supporting investments in renewable energy, efficiency, and conservation, and modernizing the electric grid. I'm proud to have authored provisions that brings funding to our communities to help save energy in the most efficient ways they know. The more we assist our hometowns in energy efficiency projects, the more it creates jobs, brings down our electric and heating bills, and fights the global warming that threatens our very way of life. The budget takes a major step also towards making health care more accessible and affordable. It expands coverage, saves on costs by implementing new technologies, puts a stronger emphasis on prevention and wellness, and supports the kind of research that can find a cure for my mom's Alzheimer's. For years, the administration neglected key areas of the federal health system. This budget restores them to their rightful importance. We're going to have national institutes of health that will save lives with their innovations. We're going to have an FDA that has the resources to keep the food we put on the table safe to eat and make sure we fully know the risks and rewards of the drugs that come into the market. A larger health care reform is on the way. But up until that happens, our message is very clear. We will not rest until in this great nation of ours, no one goes to sleep at night without access to affordable health care. So, Mr. President, let me conclude. There's one thing that all economic crises have in common. They all end. And while history has shown that government can play a constructive role, a recovery can't come from government alone. The jobs of the 21st century are going to be created by the free market within a regulatory structure that prevents it from collapsing on itself. With the kind of investments we make in this budget, we're paving the way for the private sector to create jobs and start us on the road to economic recovery. The budget sends tax relief where it should go, to working middle-class families. It moves us away from the mistakes of the past by accounting for the cost of the war in Iraq until we withdraw in 2010. It makes health care more affordable and brings a college education within reach for millions of young people. It makes the investments to begin to end our dependence on foreign oil that will keep money in our pockets and create jobs here in America. And it will cut the deficit President Bush left us before the end of President Obama's term. To sum it all up, we put forth a plan to invest in our future and get our economy moving again. It's a plan that puts forth a basic idea about what America should be. It should be a country where anyone willing to work hard can get an education and a job. A country where everyone has access to the medical services that keep them healthy. A country where a lifetime of hard work guarantees the right to retire with dignity. A country that knows its past and cares about its future. Mr. President, we've got a lot of work to do. I'm tired of hearing just a chorus of no's. The same old politics, the same old Republican policies that got us to where we are today. And now, as President Obama and we try to move forward in a much better direction for the country, what we hear is no, no, and no. This is about saying yes to a brighter future. This is about saying yes to the fulfillment of the opportunities that each and every American should have. This is about saying yes to a new set of policies. And it is about an opportunity to change the direction of our country. I have great faith that we will meet these challenges. This is a country that went to war twice in Europe to beat Nazism and fascism, and did so. This is a country that put a man on the moon and created a scientific revolution as a result of it. It's a country that went and cured diseases that were once thought incurable. It started a technological revolution that still is the envy of the world. And with this budget and working with this president, it is a country that